step into the relaxing beach house vibe at 801 Raw Bar on Church Street in downtown Lynchburg.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Try to follow us for just a second here in the Fast Lane. Tomorrow, we will get with Karina Parks of Parks PR. We are paging Parks PR because we need her expertise on many things that have popped up. The Sanders family in the NFL draft, the ACC, and apparently inviting Stanford, despite the fact that the school and their leadership or people in charge wanted to de-emphasize athletics. The ACC looked past that. So clearly those people need some consultation. And apparently the North Carolina athletic department does, not just football, but basketball, because Zayden High, what an appropriate name, was apparently suspended from the basketball team for sexual misconduct. But despite that, he was allowed entry into the facilities, which has raised a whole nother eyebrow around North Carolina. Because earlier this week, Bill Belichick appeared on 60 Minutes. Now, the football angle to this, we will actually personally discuss ourselves tomorrow in the Fast Lane. Does it matter? Does it not matter? What impact will this have? What impact won't it have? Thoughts? Share them with us. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But I actually think the whole CBS this morning, or CBS AM, or whatever they call it.
CBS this morning.
CBS this morning. I got it right the first time. I think the whole interview is not that bad. But the bad parts are what people are going to remember from that particular interview. So first of all, in Bill Belichick's defense, I actually think this makes a lot of sense. He was asked about halftime speeches. And again, from his football perspective, he answered that very well. He was asked about what he saw in Tom Brady, which sheds a lot. I even think the way he handled the media, he was asked about it. But I think it sheds light into maybe the overtrust of his, I'm not going to call her a PR expert. That we'll reserve that for Karina Parks of Parks PR. But his public relations consultant, who happens to be his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson. And Bill Belichick was asked on CBS this morning about his relationship with the media, and here was his answer.
Well, I understand they have a tough job. On the other side of that, as a coach, you have a job to do too. There's times where I could have been more accommodating. I admit that. Yeah. You just got to turn the page and move forward. As much as they want to dig deeper and deeper into the grave and see what more is down there, at some point you just got to, look ahead and move on.
So the deeper into the grave part, first of all, somebody could have potentially coached him through that analogy. There are probably better phrases. I don't think it's the worst phrase in the world, but I think you can go a little bit better with Bill Belichick in that particular phrase. But the other part is, again, having a seasoned public relations consultant could work through this. And that being, and by the way, when you're, apparently, I don't know how much stock he's putting into the North Carolina staffers and how much consideration he's given them, but it sure seems like his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, I don't know her. Full confession here in the Fast Lane. I have not asked Michael Lombardi for her information. I am not going to ask Michael Lombardi for her information. I honestly do not care enough to ask for that particular information. But this is a sports story in the sense that it's a sports personality, even though it's more of a pop culture story, because I don't think a lot of this has to do with football and what will actually happen on the field for North Carolina. I think this is less prevalent than ever before when it is basically professional football on college campuses. So I'm in the minority in that. I know I'm tipping my hand for tomorrow in the Fast Lane. But when I look at the Bill Belichick situation, and when we look at it from an outside perspective, there is a distraction that's brought along by this. And part of this may also be the fact that Jordan Hudson seems to be, I'm going to try to be diplomatic here. She's not afraid of confrontation. And she's willing to go there, so to speak. Yeah. When you're talking about the Boston media, let's keep it real in the Fast Lane. The Northeast media, I'm a Philly sports fan. I'll put them in this category. Philly, New York, Boston, Weekend Lump Chicago, in other major metropolitan areas, there's a greater level of hostility. As passionate as they are about North Carolina. TJ, you grew up in North Carolina.
I did.
You're familiar with North Carolina.
I am.
You are familiar with the media, obviously.
Yes.
And you're familiar with North Carolina media. Am I off base in this comment, or maybe I'm onto something? You should probably handle the media in that area differently than the Boston media. You don't have to be adversarial with them, because once a question's asked, if you answer it, they're not going to follow up with 10 different variations of asking the same question to try to trip you up. They will move on faster. And where a seasoned PR consultant could help Bill Belichick is, hey, it's a different environment. You can go a little bit lighter, including your interactions with the media, because they'll push you, but it's not going to be anything like what you experienced in Boston or when you were an assistant in New York.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. I think Bill's still in that NFL set mode from the media side of things, where you do get that constant asking of the same questions, just maybe in different wording, various forms or so forth. So I think it's definitely going to take Bill a minute to probably settle down with when it comes to college-based type media, especially because unlike the NFL is like Fort Knox when it comes to media. College, it's not as locked up. So you're going to have more reporters that are from small bases, especially student reporters as well. So,
well, it's interesting because Andrew Jones, a friend of ours for Tar Heel Illustrated, got a great piece up at tarheelillustrated.com. It's a link to their podcast. It's about 20 minutes, and it's worth consuming. And he's talking about how, and I'm with him on this, I don't think this is going to have as much of an impact on North Carolina winning and losing.
No.
And how it impacts the AC. I don't think players care as much about this before. I don't think, frankly, public perception of chaos around the program just doesn't matter the way that it used to, because players are more motivated by
dollar bills, y'all,
than they are by anything else. And if the money's right, they'll deal with distractions, just like in the professional world. Now, the Jordan Hudson story is a distraction in the sense that if she's got a large role and she's involved in more things with North Carolina, it is going to be asked by people covering North Carolina athletics, and therefore you got to be able to handle that. And I mean, again, 73-year-old dating a 24-year-old. To most of us out there in the real world, that bats an eye. And look, this is a pot kettle moment because my wife's 16 years older than I am, and I love her to death, but I understand. Now, you're talking about, our age difference, like times 3. So, like, there are going to be people batting an eye at this. You just got to understand that. And again, it's where instead of having your 24-year-old girlfriend who, just by virtue of being 24, can only have so much PR expertise as your PR consultant, I would tend to think you could do better than that. Not saying that you have to dump her altogether, but if you're Bill Belichick, you can have her around. What you do in your personal life is your personal life. But having her around, there's going to create scenarios like this where, just again, from a raw being prepared for the CBS This Morning interview that Bill Belichick did, if you've got the right PR consultant around you, they'll be able to set you up better when you're inevitably going to be asked about this, even if it was not technically part of the agreement.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
So that's Bill Belichick. And, again, that part makes a lot of sense. But I think you can coach some people up on how to walk through that a little bit more. And somebody can prepare you for the fact that when that's asked, there are going to be follow-up questions as well, because even though it may not have technically been part of the agreement, again, when you're talking with the fast lane, you can kind of strong arm a little bit more, or a lot of local media outlets. You can cut off coverage. They need you every single day. CBS really doesn't. And they have a platform where they can do it. They can have access to it. And then all of a sudden it can be aired and you can look disparaging in a negative manner. A seasoned PR expert can help you navigate that, as opposed to this.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
So I get it. Jordan Hudson, North Carolina Tar Heel head coach Bill Belichick's girlfriend, that was her reaction. And she's trying to shut it down, and I understand that. But there are ways you can navigate through that. And that is part of what we will discuss tomorrow in the Fast Lane with Karita Parks, because she has that PR background. And honestly, I'm even more excited than I was earlier in the week, because there's the Sanders family. Now, I guess we'll call it the Belichick family, even though they're not married. But, I mean, look, let's keep it real here. what Bill Belichick wants to do with Jordan Hudson and how they handle their personal life, go them. Go them. It does not impact me one way or the other.
No, exactly.
I understand to the public eye, there's this novelty concept, but I'm not the type that's going to go so far as to say Bill Belichick should be examined for dating somebody that's much younger than he is. Look, this stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
In the real world. And if they truly do love each other, and I'm not one to make that determination, by all means, go for it. Be happy. Do you. My wife and I love each other despite our age difference. Like, it happens. I'm sure there are differences between you and Brenda, but you work through them because
absolutely
you love each other. And how that works in your personal life, I mean, if you want to share it with us, you can. But if you don't, I'm cool. That's your business. Like, I get that. But it becomes a football story when she's involved in the football operations.
Right. Would you call it a football story? If what is reported to be true, Ed, The Athletic reported yesterday that HBO is not doing Hard Knocks with Carolina football anymore because supposedly Jordan wanted to be more involved and they were, quote unquote, uneasy about that, so to say. Does that become a football story at that point?
Oh, I think it does, because in this day and age, football, there's an element of entertainment that goes, first of all, sports, let's keep it real here in the fast lane. Sports are entertainment. But you're talking about these shows, they become a cultural touch point. And frankly, again, to our guy, Michael Lombardi, he was apparently, according to The Athletic, on board with the idea of this. And Bill Belichick.
Yeah, Belichick was on board with this. Belichick is never on board with stuff like this.
And if Jordan Hudson, and again, I don't know her, so I got to be clear about that. But if she somehow is paranoid or worried about this, in her relationship with Bill Belichick coming up and the attention it might bring, again, a seasoned PR consultant, trusting that person, not a 24-year-old, maybe a 24-year veteran in PR, not 24-year veteran in just time lived on Earth, breathing oxygen. Like, you might be able to get a little more perspective on how to navigate that. And if you don't come across so hostile to everybody, and again, I don't know Jordan Hudson, but the perception is, from how she seems to have come across, is she's very defensive, which I can respect that in the sense that I can only imagine the mean things that might have been said to her about her relationship with Bill Belichick.
Absolutely.
If they truly love each other. I'm not one to judge either way. But when you're talking about presenting your overall brand, you've got to be able to parse through that. And that's where the guidance of somebody with more maturity in that role, male or female, whatever it is, can guide you through that to say, hey, having Jordan around is great. Having her involved in your life is great. There are ways we can showcase this in a really positive manner.
And people are questioning, why aren't SIDs getting involved with this? I think this goes beyond SIDs, which is why, like you're saying, a PR consultant is needed in this scenario.
Well, and sometimes SIDs, on the flip side, is they're almost overly, they're like publicists when it comes to teams and NASCAR.
And they have to be most of the time, too.
But and for this reason in a lot of cases. But when you look at sports, often they're filled with these publicists that almost like, they're paranoid of any type of access at all. If you got the right seasoned publicist, you can pull this type of thing off. They did the Netflix quarterback documentary. They did one on wide receivers. I don't think there's any negativity that's come because of that. You can coach these people through how to handle that if they're that receptive to it. And Bill Belichick, look, by all accounts, actually is really charismatic. There were parts of that interview, and we'll get to those more tomorrow, where he comes across engaging, knowledgeable, likable, and showcases the positives that we know exist, but are going to get buried because the Jordan Hudson aspect is just going to be brought up more.
It's just like he's on a book tour. He's releasing a book. This is from one of the greatest football minds of all time. And I'm sad that we're not going to get to see much about this book because people would rather care about the whole Jordan Hudson thing. I personally want to hear Bill Belichick and his stories from his mind, how to win a football game. The Robert Kraft stories, the Tom Brady stories. Shoot, I love when Julian Edelman tells about his side of Bill Belichick's stories. That's what I want to hear, and I fear we're not going to get to hear much about it because of all this publicity on this one CBS interview.
Well, and look, there's a lot to it. Obviously, not mentioning Robert Kraft and that part. Those are all elements to this, and we'll get into this tomorrow in the fast lane. But but it's worth addressing the Jordan Hudson part because it has become a story and is being addressed and asked when there are ways around this where you can still downshift the involvement in this. And if Jordan Hudson's about elevating her PR career, okay, maybe it takes a hit. But if she truly loves Bill Belichick and wants what's best for him and, are willing to work through things, bring on somebody else to help guide you through this. Hey, you want to be an aspiring PR consultant? Great, but let's bring on a second opinion. And there's some people that would be a second opinion and they are trying to leverage it to just make it all about you and phase Jordan Hudson out. There are others that genuinely would want to mentor someone like that of how to handle this so that Jordan Hudson could legitimately grow in her role and be better suited for that. And I think those people are out there. It's not my job to figure that out, but I think there are other ways around this, and that's part of where this is. Now, tomorrow, is this a football story? Does it impact winning or not? I actually don't think it does, but we'll explain more tomorrow in the Fast Lane. When we return in the Fast Lane, not yet, we will talk with Tom Bowles, NASCAR writer for Frontstretch.com. Almost our own version of the Fast Five at 5-ish with him. But we got to get to our actual version in a moment. Before we do that, though, people might think that it's an accident that's already happened down in North Carolina, but that's only metaphorically speaking. If you've been involved in a real accident, then you need Trost Law. They've been serving our community for over 4 decades. We talked about lack of experience. If you need actual experience since 1982, over 4 decades, Trost Law, they qualify for that. If you've been in an accident, they are here to guide you through the complicated process from uninsured motorist situations. That's why they advocate getting as much uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage as possible, all the way up to injuries that might have resulted from an auto accident. They've got you covered. So just visit trostlaw.com and call 777-HURT. Speaking of HURT, 2 baseball programs that have felt HURT to kick off the Fast Five at 5-ish right now.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So the big picture ramifications of the Virginia Tech baseball loss 13-4 the other day. Got to correct myself. It was at Virginia Tech. The next one will be Wednesday at Liberty University, over near our own favorite spot, of course. But Virginia Tech lost 13-4. 2 complicated resumes. I don't pretend to know, but I get the feeling just from my observations that both of them right now feel like they need to do a little bit more work toward the end of the season. Virginia Tech baseball, a sweep at Pitt this weekend, they could really use that because while they're 27-18 overall, they've lost weekend series consecutively to Florida State, North Carolina, and Duke. And while they are a 13-2 team in midweek games, both of those midweek losses have come within the last month to Radford and to Liberty. The Liberty one doesn't look as bad, but right now it feels like Virginia Tech's kind of leaking oil down the stretch, and they just need to do more. Otherwise, if they continue to sputter, you have to wonder about their baseball chances in the NCAA tournament. And I think even then, you'd want to get some wins in the ACC tournament as well. They'll have Virginia next weekend in the baseball series between Virginia and Virginia Tech. Meanwhile, for Liberty, it's a real complex resume on their side, which we get to address in
number 4.
Because Liberty, on their victory against Virginia Tech, they have a losing record in Conference USA baseball play. Now, they still have to get Dallas Baptist coming up next weekend, which is a big series for them, obviously. And Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com discussed that yesterday with our own Trey Lyle in the morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m., and at the morning warm-up wherever you listen to podcasts. But Liberty's got a complicated scenario. They're under 500 in a non-power league, which is not good. But they've got a slew of victories in ACC play. Number 13, NC State. Wake Forest, who's a fringe top 25 team. Duke, who just swept Virginia Tech. And Virginia, they beat the Wahoos twice, and the Hoos are starting to play their way back into contention. It's really intriguing right now for Liberty, just because they're not in a power conference. I would again say if you can get a weekend series victory, a sweep would be great, but even a series victory, it would help go towards easing the mind going forward. Speaking of Liberty athletics, by the way,
Number 3.
Liberty softball could not quite pull out a victory yesterday at Virginia. Real interesting one because, of course, the team from Lynchburg fell 5-3 while Eden Bingham had the complete game victory for number 24 UVA. Now, both of these teams are set to make the NCAA tournament. Virginia, 36-16, so they're not quite at the level of Liberty as a 40-plus win team, but they are in the ACC. They've got an above 500 record. They're in the top 25. Actually, it's worth mentioning Virginia because they've had quite the turnaround the last couple of years. We know the Liberty Flames are stout. 5-3 loss, you'd like to get the victory. They kind of had a chance late, a couple of runners on, but inevitably one of them was, they walked Elena Escobar and put her on base intentionally to avoid having to pitch to her, which is the right move. But Liberty was not able to come through. Now, Eden Bingham, the victory, allowed 3 runs, 1 earned, 2 hits, just walked 4. She had a real solid performance. Not necessarily power against Liberty, but the type of touch you want to see. Midweek starter, really good for Virginia, and for Liberty, it is not as damaging as you would think. Meanwhile, following the stellar season in men's golf, Liberty's Ike Joy has been selected as an individual participant in the NCAA Amherst Regional. This is not Amherst, Massachusetts at UMass. This is Amherst, Virginia at Poplar Grove, May 12th through 14th. Joy, the one local golfer on one of the teams themselves that have their full team participants, it's heavy on SEC flavor. LSU, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Pepperdine, Tennessee, Arizona, Stanford, Wake, Arkansas, Florida Gulf Coast, Kent State, and then ironically, the 2 lowest seeds, Princeton, which I find funny because you would think an Ivy League school would have more, and then Howard, which is awesome just because, you know me being pro HBCU. That one is pretty cool. Meanwhile, former LCA star and North Carolina star Zach Rice reportedly committing to Syracuse as the transfer will head north and remain in the ACC. This kind of fits the template for Syracuse. Higher upside athletes and football players who have a lot of raw talent, but have not yet put it together. For Zach Rice, I've got more concerns than a lot of people around here because it didn't work out under Mac Brown, which was very, I'll just say player friendly. It didn't work out under Bill Belichick, and Rice is a 5-star talent. So just based on the raw athleticism and how difficult it is to find that in offensive and defensive linemen, it's a concern. Maybe Fran Brown and Syracuse can unlock something which North Carolina could not under 2 different styles and approaches. Meanwhile, when we return to the fast lane, different styles in NASCAR. Do they need to change it up? Tom Bowles, we will ask him that and more. This is the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Don't love your car? Then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
Hi, Gary the Third here, and I'm excited to say spring has arrived at Gary's Garden Center with great plants and a great selection. Gary's has seasonal color flowers along with vegetables, 60-plus varieties of herbs, perennial flowers, and much more. With friendly service and great advice, we are always happy to answer your questions. Visit Gary's Garden Center at 794 Leesville Road for all your lawn and garden needs. Stop by, say hi, and take a look around.
Join us at the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo on May 2nd and 3rd at Liberty University's Indoor Track Complex. Meet over 50 vendors, including physicians, gyms, and a wide range of health and wellness experts. Enjoy free admission, fun activities, and educational sessions for the whole family. For more information, visit thrivelyh.com. We hope you come see us at Liberty's Indoor Track Facility on May 2nd and 3rd for the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo.
Car insurance rates are rising rapidly. That's no secret. It's because the cost of medical care for those who are injured and the repair and replacement cost of damaged vehicles is skyrocketing. But what can you do about it? Hi, this is Judd Gardner with Gardner Insurance Solutions in Lynchburg. We've been helping Central Virginia drivers purchase the coverage they need at affordable prices since 1993. Talk with us before you pay again. We represent numerous companies and have many cost-saving strategies. Gardner Insurance Solutions, 434-316-5433.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Head to lynchburg-hillcats.com to lock in your tickets for the Lynchburg Hillcats this season. Now here's VTRN Sports.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Does our next guest get a little bit of heart palpitations when he hears the voice of Trey Lyle introducing the Lynchburg Hillcats just a moment ago? We'll ask him right now. Tom Bowles, Frontstretch.com. He is joining me in being Trey's boss. Tom, great to be speaking with you. Thank you for your time today. And has your heart settled back down from hearing the aforementioned Frederick Trey Lyle's voice?
Ed, how many jobs does Trey have? 3, 4, 5? Introducing teams on commercial? Does he just work at the radio station or with me 24/7?
It feels like it. I need to get the old Rick Ross soundbite of every day I'm hustling. I'm not even going to try to go to his baritone bass level for it, but I should probably have that ready.
Trey hustling Lyle?
You know, I like it, and I need to come up with a better version of that. Trey in the trap, but that's not very good because that basically says he's in a drug house, and obviously Trey is a much more individual than that. I need to be extremely clear, otherwise it will reflect poorly on the Virginia Talk Radio Network as well. Tom, speaking of reflecting poorly, NASCAR. It's been all over about how Talladega joined the list of tracks where the racing has not been very good. There's an into the weeds element first and foremost that we can get to because your colleague Mike Neff of Frontstretch.com was on his soapbox once again. We love Neff, so that's why we say that. And he mentioned some technical things like splitter adjustments and things with the back end of the car to allow more airflow that could be done to make this more friendly. Is that the route that NASCAR needs to go, or are there other things that NASCAR has to try to consider outside of abandoning the car, which we know they're not going to do at least for the next year and a half?
Well, I think this whole thing is cyclical, right? Other than saying it's Trey's fault. In all seriousness, we've seen this. You can't really call it restrictor plate racing anymore because you don't have the restrictor plate. But I feel like we go through this, Ed, every 4 to 5 years, no matter what type of car we have, no matter what setup we have. We're at the very beginning. It comes out hot. The drivers love the setup. The fans love the racing. You have amazing finishes, and then people get used to the car and people start figuring out the strategy, and all of a sudden they're on the same strategy. And what we've seen here, as we saw at Talladega, is people going 80-85% fuel save, and then when push comes to shove down the stretch, they just don't have the ability to create a third or a fourth lane. They're just stuck in place. And anything that we can do to modify the package to make it a little bit more aggressive. I was thinking about the late 90s, Ed. Do you remember those races where people could just get right behind somebody? It wasn't just a push, but they could slingshot past people. Even with the restrictions, they were still able to do it. I think NASCAR needs to find a way to add a little bit more horsepower and give them a little bit more room to be aggressive than they currently have. I think that's the big problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the elements about NASCAR doing that. The other part to this is, I know they had the old, previous car. They had multiple iterations. Now we're on the next gen car. I know it can't be solved in a year, but is this another solution? Why not have different cars? Have one for the intermediate tracks, because this car races really well there, although Texas this weekend might be the exception. I have to get my annual bash of Texas in, of course. But have a different car for the other type of tracks that would race more friendly there.
Yeah, look, problem with another car is it's expensive, and everybody is just complaining about costs. You've got a lawsuit right now over the charters, and I think there's just a lot of money that's either frozen in place or money that people don't want to spend. You got a lot of economic headwinds, and I think that's the problem with another car. Now, again, another thing you can do is abandon this style of racing, but I don't think NASCAR is going to do that. And, even though the fans, I looked at Gluck's race poll, Jeff Gluck of The Athletic is it a good race poll every week? Only 39% of the fans, Ed, thought that this was a good race at Talladega. But I just think NASCAR is not going to listen. I look at Elton Sawyer and his comments this week. I'm not quite sure they're going to do anything right now. I think they're just going to try and ride it out. And then we'll see at the end of the year, if you see another couple races like we saw at Talladega in the spring, that's when I think they would consider making changes. But I don't see a new car just because it's going to cost a lot of money.
Tom Bowles, NASCAR Bowles on Twitter and Frontstretch.com. Tom, this may sound overly simplistic, why not just run the Xfinity Series car for Cup races?
To do that, I think would be to admit that you made a mistake, right? To say, oh, this car, which is the older version of all the cars that we're running, is actually the best car that we have. And you look at the history of the sport, I think NASCAR has come a long way in a lot of different areas, but that's not really historically something that they do. And I would agree with you right now that the Xfinity Series is the best product of all three series right now on the racetrack. But I just, again, we can talk about the different changes that NASCAR could potentially make. I think Nav had some really good points, and you should read his article on Frontsretch about some of the technical changes that they could make. The other problem that we have is after a generation of this style of racing, drivers know what's up. Drivers know that how much does it matter in the first 150 laps? They just need to stay in the draft, right? And position themselves, and then they can go the last 30, 40 laps at Talladega, Daytona. And I don't know if you're going to be able to change that mindset. That's another challenge that we're seeing in 2025. And these drivers are also seeing what happened to Connor Zilic, down the stretch at Talladega. The risk for injury is highest at Talladega and Daytona. So there are a lot of problems here, some of which are outside NASCAR's control, that doesn't make this an easy fix.
Tom, how much of this then, you mentioned outside of NASCAR's control? The other part is, in the immortal words of our friend Melissa McCarthy from Saturday Night Live, how much of this is NASCAR not wanting to change because they want you to know that they have
lots of power?
Lots of power. And by admitting that there needs to be change, that all of a sudden they lose their leverage of having
lots of power.
And they have to actually maybe have their tail tucked between their legs, considering how NASCAR seems to operate.
Well, I think what drives change more than anything else, Ed, in any sport, if fans don't like something that's going on, if they don't show up, then the sport sometimes needs to make changes, right? Because if there are no fans following the sport, to make a very, very extreme example of this, well, then there's no sport at all. I mean, you need people following it. You need people supporting it. So, the fans can do their best to make their voices heard. If it gets to a point where the races are boring enough that you don't see the crazy Talladega weekends, the boulevard like it is, the stands half full, then NASCAR is going to be more apt to make changes. But look, I think that they are looking at this as one Talladega race that didn't go as expected. They've got a lot of other drama and chaos going on within the organization, between the lawsuit with 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, between a short track version of this car. If you thought Talladega was bad, the short tracks to me are so much worse.
Tom Bowles with us in the fast lane, froze up for just a second, and critical of the short tracks, which is just agonizing to many of our great listeners here in the fast lane, as we have a soft spot for NASCAR and an affinity for it. But I think there's that part to this that you look at with NASCAR and go, okay, there's a real concern and a real issue. There are other things that NASCAR has to address and kind of understand and figure out, and that is ultimately fans speaking when it comes to just the raw entertainment product. And fans will speak by whether they tune in or not. And the Cup race ratings have been down, but not considerably yet. The Xfinity Series ratings have been very good. But Tom, you mentioned that the short track racing has been bad. How much of the mood around NASCAR is soured by the fact that, okay, The Rock was great, but it's Xfinity and truck. But the last four races have been at Martinsville, Bristol, Darlington, and Talladega, normally four of the most favored tracks in NASCAR, and yet they hardly produce the results.
Ed, we got to be careful. It's like a stroke of lightning. NASCAR heard me complaining and suddenly kicked out of the studio. But think about what you just said. Think about when we were kids. Martinsville, Bristol, Talladega, Darlington. If you said those races were as bad as they were, you wouldn't believe it, because that was the stretch of racing in the 90s, in the early 2000s, that the stands were packed for, that you could guarantee that those races were going to be must-see. Bristol was selling out its night race, 160,000 fans. So to me, that's the four-alarm fire. When you talk about the short track racing, this has been a problem since the dawn of the next-gen car in 2022. At least with Talladega, Daytona, and Atlanta, I think if you look at the drafting track finishes as a whole, you'll find a couple finishes that you'll be really happy with. I don't know how many short track finishes you'll find that you're really happy with, right? Thinking through it right now, maybe one or two, yeah, at best. Bristol last year with the tires, with that miracle race where the tires wore so badly that driver skill really came into play, and we had all that craziness. Ty Gibbs led the majority of the race, but ended up, fading, and the veterans were 1, 2, 3 in that race. That was the only short track race I can think of since the next gen car debuted that it was really crazy in a race that was must-see television.
Tom, does this also lead us to a different point, which is, while NASCAR just announced that Steve Phelps would be their new NASCAR commissioner, and on the outside, you would think that he has
lots of power.
As we have to play that Melissa McCarthy soundbite once again because we just can't help ourselves, that the reality is that in spite of that, and since then, he's one of 2 finalists or possible candidates that have come out for the PGA Tour CEO search. Does Steve Phelps understand, and is this part of it, that no matter what he might try to do to improve the racing product or make suggestions to NASCAR, inevitably, as it always has, it falls back on the France family. And, he's kind of like, a commissioner in other sports where the owners, except in this case, it's just the France family, hire him to be their public punching bag and to get a lot of money to do that.
So here's what I think, Ed, and it's related to the question that you just asked. When you're at the end of a generation of car, right? We saw this in 2021 before the next gen came in. You're writing out the last year of that car, right? You're more focused on testing for the next car. You're more focused on what's to come. And there's a freeze effect, so to speak, right? Where, maybe you're not advancing as much as you'd like to advance. Maybe you're not growing as much as you want to grow because you have something coming and you're just waiting. And I feel like the lawsuit has that effect in NASCAR right now. We have no idea how this Michael Jordan-led lawsuit is going to affect the sport as a whole, how it may change the charter system. And, a lot of money is being spent not only in court, but there's a lot of money at stake. And I think a lot of people are waiting. And part of waiting means you're going to, run what you brung. We saw that in a different argument this week, but you're going to basically be just stuck in place until you get an answer that's going to shift the sport in one direction or the other. And, talk about lots of power. If NASCAR for some reason doesn't make this lawsuit, it doesn't win, they're not going to have as much power, and you're going to see the owners have more power. And then suddenly you may see a large degree of change. There also may be a large degree of change on the other end. If NASCAR wins the lawsuit, they'll gain even more power. And I think they will enforce some things that they were thinking about in terms of new ideas and new rules. But they didn't want to go there yet because they needed to make sure everybody was on board. And, what happens if NASCAR wins the lawsuit? Does 2311 take a step back? Do they continue as an organization? There are all these other questions. And I think that's part of what we're seeing right now is we're just seeing everybody wait. And as we wait, the racing is kind of not where we want it to be, but I don't know if there's going to be major changes to make it better.
Tom Bowles, helping make sure we don't go blindly through life. RIP to the greatest psychic of all time, Miss Cleo.
Don't go blindly through life. Call me now for your free reading.
Phenomenal lady, of course, outside of the whole charges thing that popped up because she was kind of a fraud. But RIP to her anyway. Tom, you have helped us get a vision of where NASCAR is right now. We are not going blindly through our NASCAR commentary because we have your insight here, frontstretch.com and at NASCAR Bowles on Twitter. Thank you for your time as always today in the Fast Lane. It has been great catching up with you, and we look forward to speaking again soon.
Thanks as always for having me. Keep Trey hustling.
We will. Every day he's hustling. Every day we are all hustling, including hustling around at Liberty University. The Thrive LYH Health and Wellness Expo tomorrow, although I'll be there Saturday starting, before 9 a.m., but the Freedom 4245K starts at 9 a.m. So when we return, Lee Rooney, Lauren McQuilan will join us to discuss that event. This is the Fast Lane on the VTR and Sports app and 93.3 FM.
At the Trost Law Group, the only basis upon which we judge ourselves is by the client's success. Everyone on our team understands our responsibility to our clients, which is why we'll do everything we can to be on top of our game for you. If you've been injured in an accident, you need a team who's focused on how they can benefit you. If you've been injured as a result of someone else's negligence, call the Trost Law Group at 777-HURT. That's 777-HURT, and put us to work for you.
Welcome to the Villas at Oakwood, offered by Oakwood Villas Retirement Homes, LLC, the best kept secret in Bedford. Our stunning community offers spacious, one-level modern villas with top-of-the-line amenities. Enjoy a walk through our landscape community, connect with neighbors in our clubhouse, and take in the views of the peaks. Visit thevillas@oakwood.com or contact Robin Lee Sage at 434-238-4477, brokered by Legacy Realty and Development.
Hi, Gary the Third here, and I'm excited to say spring has arrived at Gary's Garden Center with great plants and a great selection. Gary's has seasonal color flowers along with vegetables, 60-plus varieties of herbs, perennial flowers, and much more. With friendly service and great advice, we are always happy to answer your questions. Visit Gary's Garden Center at 794 Leesville Road for all your lawn and garden needs. Stop by, say hi, and take a look around.
Join us on May 2nd and 3rd for Freedom 424's annual 5K event, Run for Their Lives, brought to you by Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo. This combination of events seeks to bring Lynchburg all of the health and wellness resources that it so deserves. Come experience our 5K, our kids' 1-mile race, and an expo with over 50 vendors to give you the tips and tricks you need to stay healthy. We hope to see you out at the LU Indoor Track Complex Friday night or Saturday morning, May 2nd and 3rd.
Car insurance rates are rising rapidly. That's no secret. It's because the cost of medical care for those who are injured and the repair and replacement cost of damaged vehicles is skyrocketing. But what can you do about it? Hi, this is Judd Gardner with Gardner Insurance Solutions in Lynchburg. We've been helping Central Virginia drivers purchase the coverage they need at affordable prices since 1993. Talk with us before you pay again. We represent numerous companies and have many cost-saving strategies. Gardner Insurance Solutions, 434-316-5433.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. And every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Hi, this is Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech men's basketball. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Trey, as we welcome you back into the Fast Lane, the aforementioned Trey Lyle, who actually is on the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle, 7 to 8 a.m. on the VTR and Sports app. Trey has been teasing the idea that people that run close to me or even finish ahead of me will get shout-outs Monday on the morning warm-up. So there's a good chance that might actually happen. The reason he's referencing that is this Friday is the start of the Thrive LYH Health and Wellness Expo. But, Saturday's the day I will be there because 9 a.m. the Freedom 424 5K kicks off the festivities. And it's a great way to celebrate health and wellness in the area. If you are watching on Facebook Live and YouTube at Fastlane Ed Lane, you can already see them, Lauren McQuilan and Lee Rooney. If you're listening, we will introduce them to you right now, as Lauren and Lee are both joining us in studio to promote this event. First of all, Lauren, you work with Freedom 424. This race has existed for a while, but turning it into something much more than a race, which is a health and wellness expo, where did that idea originate?
Oh, well, Freedom 424 has moved into more of the education and prevention space in the last couple of years. And when Lee came to me and said that he wanted to host Lynchburg's first Health and Wellness Expo, I thought, what better partner than an organization that's focused on relational health? So we have a race, we're focused on relational health, and now we're adding mental, physical, spiritual, all of the other wellness capacities to it as well.
You put all that together and Lee approached you with this idea. Lee, take us then through this. And this is Lee Rooney, who's also part of the Thrive LYH Health and Wellness Expo, as we're discussing that today here in the Fast Lane. Where did the idea for you, Lee, originate that this could become a bigger event than it's starting to become?
Well, it was really an interesting setup when I own a yoga studio, Prana Yoga and Fitness, and we were trying to put together a women's retreat one fall weekend. and we were trying to get it all pieced together. We were going to try to get some educational stuff, some workouts and all that. And as I started to talk with Lauren, it seemed like it was a big need here in the community to have these types of resources available, not only to women, but also to men and also children. And so we started expanding the thought about that. And we said, well, why not have a health and wellness expo and invite all the people who are interested in health and wellness, which is a lot in Lynchburg, to come and join and see what is available in the local community. So this has been about a 10-month project, maybe a year. And so we were able to finally get it together, and it's coming together here this weekend. And we hope we have a big turnout.
It's awesome to see. I mean, you mentioned the big turnout right off the bat. 50 vendors, 50. That's at least. I mean, that's when we spoke a week or two ago. Lauren, organizing, recruiting, putting all those people together. When the idea came to both of you guys, did you envision how this could come together and how you could use the Liberty University indoor track facility and being able to bring so many people together to have a whole expo, which is really what this is?
Well, at first, we were thinking about hosting this independently, at which time I thought, year one is always challenging. I don't know if we'll see many people come out. But when we decided to partner it with the race at the facility that we've used for several years now, I was very confident that we were going to have the buy-in from the runners, from the freedom supporters, from Lee's yoga studio. We kind of have these built-in communities that are really excited to support us.
You brought up it, and we'll stick with Lauren McQuilan here for a moment, as she's helps run Freedom 424 and is joining us with Lee Rooney of Prana Yoga and Fitness today to discuss the Thrive LYH Health and Wellness Expo. Tomorrow is when it gets going, Friday, May 2nd. Our big day, of course, since I'll be running the 5K, 9 a.m., is Saturday, May the 3rd. But the part that probably is the most intriguing, or one of the most intriguing parts of this that you mentioned just discussing with Lee and putting all this together in terms of the vendors and people coming together. I can speak to myself as a runner, but have you noticed, being part of Freedom 424, putting on this race as well, that a lot of times people around races and events, regardless of what their skill level is and ability level, it's more about their overall health journey, and that could sync up really well with an event like this?
Yeah, especially because this is a run or walk, or push a stroller or walk a dog. This isn't exclusively for people who are trying to break their 5K time. This is an opportunity to get outside, to enjoy what looks like it's going to be beautiful weather, thank goodness, and to connect with community. And anybody can do that. It's not limiting to just people who run every single weekend.
And Lee, you are exposed with Prana Yoga and Fitness to a different health community, but I mean, it's the same concept in terms of people that want to live their best life. How much have you noticed is, the owner of a yoga studio, which actually is a lot more than just yoga. I can attest to that because I do use Prana Yoga and Fitness. But that most people that go there, it's about having access to multiple resources, and yoga is part of that. But if they can learn more, they want to learn more.
Yeah, since this kind of initiative to make people healthy again, a lot of people are buying into that idea. I think a lot of people, not only here in Lynchburg, but across the country, are not very satisfied with the current state of medical health, physical health with a lot of people. So it seems like they just are a number, or just a person just going through, a regular kind of situation there. And what's happening is people are looking for alternatives now. Okay. And we've got that. We're thinking about people who are thinking outside of the box. We've got holistic physicians there, health and beauty types of businesses that are catering to alternative types of therapies. We've got an acupuncturist. We've got, what else we got there, Lauren?
Chiropractors. Frostfire, the cold plunge and sauna locale is coming out. A lot of PTs, people who, aren't just focused on your medical health, but want to help you improve in as many ways as possible.
Lauren, go further, if you don't mind, into that. And we're chatting with Lauren McQuilan of Freedom 424 and Lee Rooney of Prana Yoga and Fitness, but they also come together to help put on the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo Friday, May 2nd, tomorrow, and Saturday, May 3rd at the indoor track facility at Liberty. Go further into that, if you wouldn't mind, Lauren, in terms of the vendors and the fact that there's the physical side of things, but there's also the spiritual side, there's the emotional side, and it seems like this is a place where people can go to get the type of encouragement and support they need to grow and continue to be the best versions of themselves or make the improvements they want?
Yeah, I think about when I first had kids and I had to pick a pediatrician for my children. It was an overwhelming proposition because I was evaluating essentially 40 strangers in town for some of the care that was most important to my family. So having these vendors all in one location, being able to vet them, being able to interact with them in person and understand what's a priority to them and if they match with you, whether it's a pediatrician or a chiropractor or a PT or a mental health care provider. We have a lot of therapists that are going to be joining us, or something a little bit more outside the box, like Lee was mentioning, acupuncturists, or I'm really excited about Frostfire. I don't know if you've cold plunged recently, but it's a whole mental experience. And I think that there are these practices that we don't even know about that could greatly benefit us and our loved ones. So this is kind of your one-stop shop for all of the things that will educate and enrich that healthy part of your life.
You mentioned the cold plunge. Again, the last time I did was trying to think of the date. It had to have been December 31st, 2023, because it was in Arizona the day before Liberty got smoked by a bunch of future NFL players on the Oregon Ducks in the Fiesta Bowl. But I remember doing that, and you're like, at first it seems like it's so intimidating, but you get a chance to sample that. How much of being at the Thrive LYH Health and Wellness Expo and putting this together is so that people can break down that intimidated factor of maybe not knowing what they're getting into? And not that this isn't free samples of everything, but you can kind of sample and get a real gauge of what each vendor is like and how they can serve you.
Yeah. So In Motion, for example, will have their tables out to be offering stretches, and you can hop on a table and be there for 5 minutes. And if you hate it, you can get out of there. You haven't paid, you haven't committed. You're not going to make it awkward for the person who's working on you. So it's really just, like you said, a sampling. And we do have a lot of free opportunities. So the first 250 people through the door get a swag bag, and it's a collection of items that have been provided by all different vendors, electrolytes and a water bottle and essential oils and some gym membership, try it for a week or try it for a month. So there's a lot to be gained just by showing up and interacting with all of our vendors.
That stretch sounds really appealing for those of us that are running the Freedom 4245K.
Exactly, right.
It's gonna be mighty nice to not be feeling as beat up as we might when we cross the finish line. Right. If you're psycho like I am, many people actually go out and enjoy it. I'm more like one step from the end of it, so to speak. But the whole point is it's a fun atmosphere, and you tie it in to the 5K. And emphasizing this, but we partner with other events. We'll partner with Memorial Day 10K. We partner with the Star City Half Marathon and 10K, among other great races in our region. But a lot of people at these events, and the Freedom 4245K seems like it fits this description, which is for those that want to come out at 9 a.m., you can be people that go all out, shall we say. But also, if you just want to go out and have a good fun, this is a great way to kick off a day, maybe to rededicate yourself to your health and wellness. And the cool thing about running is it's whatever your comfort level is, and wherever you want to go, whatever you get in, whatever you want it to be is what you can make it be.
That's right. And you can walk. The course is gorgeous. The views are stunning. There is no pressure. But I think one of the things that we really value in regard to health and wellness is community. And it can be really challenging to find your people. So we're hoping that all of these like-minded individuals who value their health and wellness will connect with each other and find vendors that work for them. It's more than just the run. It's more than just the gym. It's about finding your people in Lynchburg.
We're going to ask Lee Rooney of Prana Yoga and Fitness about this part as well. We touched on the 5K run and walk for Freedom 424 Saturday 9 a.m. It kicks off the day for the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo at Liberty's indoor track facility. But Lee, you've got a lot of younger people. I see plenty of them regularly at Inferno Hot Pilates and the hot yoga that I do at your Prana Yoga and Fitness studio. But the value of the kids' 1 mile race, getting kids started early in fitness and in health and being conscious with that, and parents being able to be an example of that. How much have you seen that carry over now, Lee, to where now all of a sudden, I feel like I'm getting old here, but saying the next generation of people are really putting an emphasis on that too?
Well, we've noticed that most of the adults that are out there are wanting to move. Okay. Ever since COVID has impacted all of us. It's affected not only the adults, but the kids that we're in charge of. And so these kids aren't moving as much as they used to. And so we are trying to incentivize them by showing them alternative ways to get moving so that they'll be able to stay healthy. And if you're physically fit, physically healthy, that also helps with mental health, which is a big problem now these days. So getting these people moving, not only the adults, but also the kids moving around with alternative types of maybe kinetics or maybe Kratos, maybe My Studio. There's so many different alternatives. One thing I wanted to say is that a lot of these businesses here are local. Okay. These people have skin in the game. They're part of our community. They're not, big fitness. Okay. So you're going to be able to talk to some of these owners and get to know them on a personal basis.
That's a really cool feature to this as well. It's people that you can meet, and it's not going to be a one-time deal. It's a relationship that you can develop to be your best self. This is where I get to ask the broad question to wrap up our chat today in the Fast Lane on W227BG Timberlake, WVGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, and the VTRN Sports app, since we'll go a little bit over the 6 o'clock timeline. And that is this open-ended for you first, Lee, and then for you, Lauren, because we know Lauren's on top of it. She'll clean up wherever Lee misses. But Lee, what else do people need to know about the event and as it's come together Friday and Saturday over at Liberty University?
Yeah, this event has been a long time coming for the city. A lot of people have been telling us, we have been looking for something like this for the longest time, and there's never been anything like this. And this is the opportunity for people to come together under one big roof to find out some health and wellness resources here in this town. I've always had a hard time finding resources here, and because you would end up going to each individual business, and it's very difficult to do that as a parent. And so now you've got them all under one roof. And I really want to encourage people to check this out because there's nothing like this that's ever been presented to the city.
Lee's given us the holistic overview of things we need to know. Lauren, things that we need to know and what we can expect Friday, May 2nd and Saturday, May 3rd at the Liberty University Indoor Track for the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up with a plug for Freedom 424 since that's what I do. I love to plan a party, but I love to plan a party that does good. And it's going to be a party. It's going to be a lot of fun, bounce houses, live music, pancakes, a lot of good energy, group fitness classes, education. It's going to be fun, but it's also going to provide so much value. So it's worthwhile to take those couple of hours on your Saturday. Come on out. We have some education all day long. Centra is going to be talking about alpha-gal. Freedom 424 is going to be educating on the red flags of human trafficking. We have some professionals and some really intelligent people who are providing information free of charge. So we hope it enriches your life, both in your health and wellness, but also mentally, because these resources are unheard of, and we're thrilled that we can offer them to the public for free.
Oh, can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun Saturday. Come hang out with us. I'll be running the 5K. You can run it. You can walk it. Bring the kids for the 1 mile race. And most importantly, stick around after the Freedom 424 5K event for the Thrive Lynchburg Health and Wellness Expo. If you want a sneak peek, it's actually starting Friday, May 2nd, as well as Saturday, May 3rd at the Liberty University Indoor Track Facility. More info, if you're real curious, to look it up right now, which you can always do, thrivelyh.com. Lee, Lauren, appreciate you both for making a time out of your busy schedules to stop by and get some rest this evening, because it's about to be a real fun, busy weekend for y'all.
We can't wait to see you guys out there.
Thanks,
Please let us know it's time.
Yes.
Please.
Oh, Trey is dying to know, and we'll have it posted in some big audacious fashion Monday in the morning warm-up. He'll be teasing it tomorrow. That's how we wrap up the Fast Lane today. The morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m. tomorrow. We're back at 5 in the Fast Lane. And if you missed anything, you know where to go. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as Facebook Live or YouTube.
The reason why the Lakers go home, Gobert turned into Shaq last night. 5th player in the last 20 seasons with a 25-20 game in the playoffs. The others, Shaq and Rudy Gobert. Which one doesn't belong? I mean, my goodness. That was absolutely wild. And honestly, I give Minnesota credit. I stayed up. I was tweeting wee hours of the morning. Mike Conley hitting a dagger 3. Julius